Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Steven here with TB4, and this is day 18 of the 80 Days to Your Dream Body course. Today's protein source is going to be beef liver, and today is a legs and abs training routine. And the theme for today's workout is CRAC PNF stretching. So right now, I'm going to be demonstrating how to perform CRAC PNF stretching. Now let's get started. And while we are resting, we are going to continue with our CRAC PNF demonstration for the knee flexors. We've already gone straight into flexion and flexion at a 30 degree of adduction. So now the next one is going to be flexion at 60 degrees of adduction. In terms of the positioning, it's going to be very, very similar. For this one right over here, because we're getting lower to the ground, when I did it normally, I went straight underneath. Then I moved over to the shoulder at 30. At 60 degrees, I like to place it in the crook of my elbow. So I will place the Achilles tendon right in the crook of my elbow. And then for this one right over here, same thing. I'm going to just lean back and I'm just going to take them into flexion on a 60 degree of adduction. And then I would instruct the patient, inhale, push your foot into me. They would inhale, contract, and then exhale, bring your foot toward your opposite ear. And then they would actively go into adduction and flexion. And for this one right over here, when we are, another thing is that, again, we could just gently guide them further into flexion. Optional, don't need to do it. But I like to do it, does enhance the effects of the stretch a little bit. The other hand positioning, if this one doesn't feel comfortable for you, is you could also just go into one hand at the distal femur, one hand at the calcaneus, lean out, take them further into flexion and adduction. And then you would instruct the patient, inhale, contract, so bring your foot into my hand, they would push. And then exhale, bring your foot toward your opposite ear, and they would actively go into flexion on an adduction of 60 degrees. And then again, you could just gently guide them further into the stretch if you so choose to do so. When we are focusing on the knee flexors with the thigh adducted to 60 degrees, primarily we're going to be targeting the biceps femoris. In this position, we're getting a lot more biceps femoris because the biceps femoris, again, is the most lateral of the hamstrings group. And in this position, we're targeting the lateral compartment of the posterior knee the most. So when we are targeting the lateral fibers, we're going to be targeting more of the biceps femoris. And again, both the long and short head. We're still going to be getting the semitendinosus, and to a lot lesser extent, we're going to be targeting the semimembranosus in this position because, once again, the semimembranosus is the most medial of the hamstrings group. Same thing with regard to the gastrocnemius. The gastrocnemius, we're going to be getting a lot more of the lateral head of the gastrocnemius and a lot less of the medial head of the gastrocnemius. We're also going to be getting the sartorius, and to a lesser extent, the popliteus, and to an even lesser extent, the gracilis and the plantaris. The last one for the knee flexors is going to be the knee flexors with the leg fully adducted to 90 degrees. So for this one right over here, what I would like to do is I would take the patient all the way across, and then what I would do in this position is I would rest their foot. I would take their calcaneus, anchor it to my hip. With my forearm, I'm going to go on the dorsal surface of their foot and then anchor onto their fibula. Then from this position over here, what I would do is I would just lean back, and using my hip, I would just guide them. So I would take them into traction, and then I would guide them into further adduction. For this one right over here, you would then instruct them, inhale, push your foot into me. They would inhale, contract, and then exhale, bring your foot closer toward your ear. And Johnny's thigh is a little bit stuck. There we go. So inhale, contract. They would contract. Exhale, bring your foot toward the midline, and they would actively go into as much adduction as possible. And then again, as an added option, you can just gently guide them a little bit deeper into the stretch. Again, if you prefer, you could do one hand distal femur, one hand at the calcaneus, and just traction, pull across, and then instruct, inhale, push your ankle into me. They would inhale and contract the muscle. Exhale, bring your inner foot toward me, and they would actively go into adduction. And then again, you could just gently, passively take them further into the stretch. You could also go from this position over here if you so choose. One hand at the lateral malleolus of the ankle, one hand at the lateral condyle of the femur, and then just use more of a pushing motion as opposed to a pulling. But when we are focusing on the knee flexors with the hip adducted to 90 degrees, this one, the biceps femoris, is getting everything in this one right over here. This is going to be the most lateral of the femur. So when we are completely at 90 degrees, the biceps femoris is going to be where all of the magic is happening. We are still going to be getting the semitendinosus, but not quite as much, and to a much lesser extent, the semimembranosus in this position. In this position, the semimembranosus is going to be under the least stretch of all of the different positions that we've done so far. Same thing with the gastrocnemius. The gastrocnemius, we're going to be getting most of the stretch from the lateral head of the gastrocnemius and the least amount of stretch in the medial head of the gastrocnemius. And we're getting some stretch in the sartorius as well, to a lesser extent the popliteus, and we're also going to be getting a little bit of stretch in the gracilis and the plantaris. But our rest period is up, time for set number 3. That was just a tiny taste of what can be found in my members only section. If you enjoyed it, become a member for only $5 a month to get access to hundreds of member only videos.